Christmas. It says this: it was, according to many authorities, not celebrated in the first centuries of the Christian church, as the Christian usage in general was celebrated the death of remarkable persons rather than their birth. A feast was established in memory of the birth of the Savior in the 4th century. In the 5th century, the Western Church ordered it to be celebrated forever in the day of the old Roman feast of the birth of the soul, or the Son. So can you see the evolution? Even Encyclopedia Americana is telling us that Christmas was never celebrated by our disciples, by the apostles, by our predecessors, even the church fathers. This goes all the way back. It wasn't until the 5th century that this feast was incorporated and mandated into Christianity to be celebrated. And look what it says. It says it's to be celebrated forever in the same day as the Roman feast of the birth of the Son. Look at this. This is from the records of the General Court here in Massachusetts Bay Colony, May 11th, 1659, says this: to the great dishonor of God and offense of others, it is therefore ordered by this court and the authority thereof, that whosoever shall be found observing any such day as Christmas or the like, either by forbearing of labor, feasting, or any other way, upon any such account as aforesaid, every such person so offending shall pay for every offense 5 shillings as a fine to the county. As a matter of fact, the very first states to celebrate Christmas was Alabama in 1836 and Louisiana and Arkansas in 1838. It took all the way to the mid-1800s before Christmas was even allowed to be celebrated in the United States. Why would our founders, who were founded in the God of the Bible, make it illegal to celebrate Christmas? Because they were not as far removed as we are from the truth. They understood that these things came out of paganism. They understood that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, did not want us to mix things that people used to worship to the gods that he hates in worship to him. Let me ask a question that you might be thinking, but can't we just take something that Satan meant for evil and turn it around for good? He knows my heart, right? Leviticus 18:30 says this: keep my requirements and do not follow any of the detestable customs that were practiced before you came, and do not defile yourselves with them. I am the Lord your God. Mark 7:7-8 says, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold to the tradition of men. The question is if we're supposed to worship the Lord 24 hours a day, and we're supposed to put God on a pedestal where we worship him, don't you think we should worship him in the ways that he has asked us to worship him, and not in the traditions of men? Certainly not the traditions of men that are connected to pagan fertility rites and the worship of the sun god. Let's move into Deuteronomy chapter 12. This is really the king of scriptures, if you will, that give us a good, clear indication of whether or not we can do things just because we are sincere about it. Deuteronomy chapter 12 says this: and you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, their obelisk, burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things. Now, when I started my journey, I began to discover all of these things. The very first thing that I thought to myself, after I thought, well, that's not what it means to me, was I thought, well, I can actually take some of these things and Christianize them, and the Lord would certainly be pleased that I'm stealing something from the enemy and giving it to him. Well, here we have the Israelites crossing over the Jordan River. They're taking over these Canaanite communities, and instead of destroying everything exactly the way the Father told them to destroy it, they would take certain things like the altars, which were very difficult to build, and they said, well, let's not destroy everything. Let's take this altar, we'll scratch out the name of their God, and we'll put the name of our God. He says, don't you dare do that. Don't you dare take anything that used to be used towards a sun god and Christianize it, throw a little bit of holy water on it, and then offer it to me. I won't accept it. He says, do not worship the Lord your God in that way. He says, you shall not at all do as we are doing